Thank you very much, Madam President Di Roberta, Minister, honourable members. It's now 70 years ago that Alcide de Gasperi said, "We don't just need peace among us, but to build a common defence. This is not to threaten or conquer, but to deter any attack from the outside driven by hatred against a united Europe. This is the task of our generation." End of quote. 70 years have gone by, but our generation is faced with the very same task, because peace in our union can no longer be taken for granted. We are facing a crisis of European security, but we know that it is in crises that Europe has always been built. So this is a moment for peace through strength. This is the moment for a common defence effort. And at the European Council, I saw a level of consensus on European defence which is not just unprecedented, but was completely unthinkable only a few weeks ago. There is a new understanding that we must think differently and act accordingly. We have started to mobilize Europe's massive resources, and in the coming weeks and months, more courage will be necessary, and other difficult choices await us. Honourable members, the European security order is being shaken, and so many of our illusions are being shattered. After the end of the Cold War, some believed that Russia could be integrated in Europe's economic and security architecture. Others hoped that we could rely indefinitely on America's full protection. And so we lowered our guard. We cut our defence spending from routinely averaging more than 3.5% to less than half of that. We thought we were enjoying a peace dividend, but in reality, we were just running a security deficit. The time of illusions is over now. Europe is called to take greater charge of its own defence, not in some distant future, but already today, not with incremental steps, but with the courage that the situation requires. We need a surge in European defence, and we need it now. We need it first and foremost because of the situation in Ukraine. There is the urgent need to fill the gaps in Ukraine's military supplies and to provide Ukraine with solid security guarantees. But this moment of reckoning isn't only about Ukraine. It is about all of Europe and our entire continent's security. Putin has proven time and again that he is a hostile neighbour. He cannot be trusted. He can only be deterred. And we know that Russia's military complex is outproducing ours. If we look at the military expenditure in real terms, the Kremlin is spending more than all of Europe combined. Europe's production is still on a lower order of magnitude. And beyond traditional capabilities, the range of threats that we face is getting broader by the day. I know that the European Parliament argued for years that Europe needs to do more, and you were absolutely right. And this is more dangerous today, the era we live in, so Europe really needs to step up. And this is the goal of the plan that I presented to leaders last week. Its logic is very simple. We want to pull every single financial lever we have to strengthen and fast-track our defence production. With the Rearmed Europe plan, we can mobilise up to 800 billion euros. So, honourable members, let me focus on some of the main features of this plan. First, there is the so-called national escape clause. And let me start why it is crucial to mobilise national budgets. Just if we look today, we spend just short of 2% on average of our GDP on defense. Every analysis today agrees that we need to move north of 3%. Now look at the entire European budget, it only reaches 1% of the GDP. So it's obvious that the bulk of new investments can only come from member states. And this is why we are activating the national escape clause, foreseen by our new fiscal rules. This is a new tool that was created just last year. And we propose to trigger it in a controlled, time-bound, and coordinated way for all member states. This can transform our defense budgets quickly and effectively. Member states could mobilize up to 650 billion euros over the next 4 years, adding round about 1.5% of GDP to their defense budgets over 4 years. This is massive. And yet, the European Council has tasked us to explore further measures to facilitate significant defense spending at national level while ensuring debt sustainability. The second point, the European Council has agreed on our proposal for a new financial instrument. We call it SAFE, Security Action for Europe. We offer member states up to 150 billion euros in loans to invest following a few basic principles. They could focus on a few selected strategic capability domains. You're familiar with them. It's advanced air defense, drones, missiles and ammunition, strategic enablers, military mobility, cyber, artificial intelligence, just to name a few, so that we maximize the impact of our investments. These loans should finance purchases from European producers to help boost our own defense industry. The contracts should be multi-annual to give the industry the predictability they need. And finally, there should be a focus on joint procurement because we've seen how powerful this can be. Just think of the Czech initiative or the Danish initiative to provide weapons and ammunition for Ukraine. One nation that takes the lead, others join in to place larger orders. Industry then can scale up and prices went down. It was both very quick and very effective. And this is exactly what we need right now, scale and speed. And this is why we have chosen the emergency procedure under Article 122, which is designed precisely for times when, and I quote, severe difficulties arise in the supply of certain products, end of quote. In other words, the 122 allows us to raise money, to lend it to member states, for them to invest in defense, and this is the only possibility for emergency financial assistance, and that is what we need now. We will keep the Parliament constantly updated on progress. And this leads me to my third point, the cohesion funds. This is a possibility that we are offering to member states. Member states will have the possibility to redirect some of their uncommitted funds to defense-related projects. This could be infrastructure, it could be research and development. This would be voluntary for those who want to go the extra mile. It will be up to Parliament and Council to decide on this additional option. And for the same reason, Rearmed Europe also includes measures to mobilize private investment with the European Investment Bank and our upcoming Savings and Investment Union. Honourable members, all of this will also have positive spillovers for our economy and our competitiveness. It will include new factories and production lines that will be necessary, creating good jobs right here in Europe. The investment boost will be felt well beyond the defence sector. We know these spillover effects to both sides, be it from steel to space, large transport companies, or the innovative AI startups. Together we have the size to deter any hostile country. We have the economic power. And now finally we also have the political will. We all wish we could live in more peaceful times, without any question. But I'm confident if we unleash our industrial power, we can restore deterrence against those who seek to harm us. It is a time to build a European defence union that ensures peace on our continent through unity and through strength. This is Europe's moment, and Europe will rise to it. Thank you very much, and long live Europe.
Thank you very much. Costa. President Costa, go ahead.
Thank you. Madam President of the European Commission, Minister Schwabka, honourable members, the European Union is living a defining moment. The sense of urgency is upon us. Geopolitical tensions have risen over the last weeks. Multilateralism is under enormous pressure, and so is the rules-based international order. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine entered its third year, and the threat is representing it as a wider implications for Europe and international security. This is exactly why last week the European Council took fast and ambitious decisions on defence and Ukraine. We are putting our money where our mouth is. We are delivering on what we promised. 3 years ago, precisely, in Versailles, we decided to boost Europe's defence, to build the Europe of defence. 3 years ago, we laid the foundation of what we decided last week. Over the last 3 years, Member States increased their defence spending by 30%. Over the last 3 years, on average, among the 23 European Union Member States that are in NATO, we reach the NATO target for 2024 of 2% of GDP. Now we are going much further. In 1 month, working hand in hand with the European Commission, we have kick-started the Europe of Defence. On the 3rd of February, in the informal leaders' meeting, with the special participation of the British Prime Minister and the Secretary-General of NATO, we opened the way for decisions. Last week, the Commission anticipated some of its proposals on defence financing, which were the basis for European Council decisions. In this special European Council, we decided to invest in the priority areas already defined by the European Defence Agency, reflecting the lessons learned from the war in Ukraine and in full coherence with the NATO. Air and missile defence, artillery systems, missiles and ammunition, drones and anti-drone systems, strategic enablers, military mobility, artificial intelligence, cyber and electronic warfare. We have also decided to mobilise more public and private funds for our defence need. In addition to the loan instrument proposed by the Commission, leaders were clear that we need flexibility with the Stability and Growth Pact, and in the use of the European funds will also be important to provide more public money for the defence sector where Member States decide to do so. The European Investment Bank initiative to broaden its mandate for more loans to the defence sector will improve access to private financing. Finally, we decided to spend better and more efficiently together, with joint procurement, ensuring standardization and simplifying permitting and reporting requirements. Our focus is clear. Next week, the Commission and the High Representative will present the White Paper on Defence, and the European Council will continue to take work forward to build our deterrence, to strengthen the security of our continent. Competitiveness and defence must go hand in hand to boost Europe's industrial and technological competitiveness, to create jobs, reinforcing economic convergence and the resilience of our values chains networks. It is the right way to make the European Union stronger. It is the right way to protect our citizens and our social model. Mesdames et Messieurs, les efforts que nous
Ladies and gentlemen, the efforts that we are making to spend more in favour of European defence will benefit Ukraine too. The security of Ukraine and that of Europe cannot be dissociated. The main guarantee of security that we can provide is to strengthen the capability that Ukraine has to defend itself and to build up a credible defence which is robust in Europe. Last week, we also tasked the Council to work quickly on new initiatives intended to respond to the urgent needs faced by Ukraine in terms of military and defence. At the same time, we are prepared to support Ukraine when it decides to start negotiations in order to achieve a lasting, just peace. We are encouraging partners to support Ukraine. On Friday, I organised a video conference with the President of the European Commission and the High Representative with NATO partners such as the United States, Canada, Turkey, Norway and Iceland. The Extraordinary Council meeting had just ended and our friends reacted very positively when it came to our decisions and how quickly we had taken them. Our common interest and commitment strengthened our cooperation once again. We have to keep up the pace. At the European Council meeting, which will take place next week, we will continue our discussions and we will take further decisions on competitiveness and on strategic European autonomy. We are all very much aware of the need to catch up when it comes to innovation, productivity and investment. Re-establishing European competitiveness should be the first amongst our priorities. This is an essential issue and will be one which will be addressed at the next European Council meeting. And I will come back to speak to you to tell you what was discussed.
Senhores deputados, hoje não é apenas o terceiro aniversário da Declaração de Versailles.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, 3 years since the Versailles Declaration and 50 years since the first council meeting in 1975. So since I assumed this particular position, we've seen numerous developments. A Europe of defense and prosperity is going to be part of this mandate, integral. These are two linked issues, and it's absolutely clear that strengthening the role of Europe in the world is a strategic choice that has to be made, because in the present context, we have to really strengthen those ties that we have with third countries, those alliances, trade agreements, anything that's associated with development worldwide as well. But at the same time, we see ourselves having to confront serious global challenges. We are a dependable partner, and many countries throughout the world want to work with us together at all levels. 100 days later, we find ourselves in a point where we have to cooperate effectively on all fronts. Thank you very much, Roberta, and thank all of you. Thank you, Ursula, as well. The European institutions, the member states, have to be more united than ever for a strong European Union. In order to move forward, we have to trust ourselves, have confidence. We need more unity as well under these particular geopolitical circumstances. We are seeing situations developing very quickly, but we will be stronger, we will be more robust for peace, prosperity, welfare in Ukraine and in Europe. Thank you very much.
President Costa. So now I give the floor to the co-president of the ECR group, Nicola Procaccini. Thank you again.
Thank you, President. Now I deserve an extra minute because of the discomfort you caused me.
I understand.
So thank you, President. The European Council represents a step in the journey back to reality, which we welcome. Yes, we would have liked greater clarity on the sources of financing for the plan, on long-term planning, and on its integration within the overall framework of the Atlantic Alliance. Considering rearmed EU a retaliation against Trump and the USA is a tragic mistake, just as it would be to see it as a concession to the Trump administration. Investing in defense and security is an act of dignity for our nations and a mark of respect for our international allies. It was Obama and Biden before Trump who asked Europe not to rely solely on the sacrifices of the American working class. And what was Europe's response? The Green Deal, a massively expensive welfare system, tariffs on American cars, and some moral lessons towards those who ensured our security with their own money and even their own blood. Macron is right when he says that imagining the European Union as the only herbivorous power in a world of carnivores is pure utopia. The problem is that we don't stop breeding the carnivores. Look at the European imports of liquefied natural gas from Russia. Do you know how much France alone has increased its LNG purchases in the past year? By 81%. Money that Putin uses for the missiles with which he bombs Ukraine daily. When Trump says that the European Union has given more money to Putin than to Zelensky, he is telling the truth. I hope this hypocrisy ends once and for all. The Italian Prime Minister is right. Let's not call it rearm EU, but defend EU. Because the peace and freedom we enjoy must be defended. And defense is not only about weapons, but also about strategic infrastructure, raw materials, communication systems, and technological innovations. Meloni is right again, and not only her, when she states that the European defense detached from American allies and NATO is unthinkable. Politicians and legislatures come and go, but the West remains and must remain for a long time. We are bound by a common past and a common destiny. As the Latins say, simul stabunt, simul cadent.
Thank you very much, Mr. Procaccini.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, Mr. Costa, I would like to thank you for the Council conclusions, and certainly on Ukraine, where you opted for a conclusion by 26 member states and not 27. And I think that was a very good decision to do, and not every time try to weaken our conclusions in order to get all 27 on board. However, this also means that the Council should act on this asset of Putin within the Council. Doing conclusions with only 26 is a first step. Triggering Article 7 is really time to act on it. Secondly, Madam President, I want to thank you for your rearm proposal, and the Greens are fully on board and supporting you for a truly European defence and security union. However, in your plan we do have some questions and concerns. First of all, triggering an escape clause. To be very honest, if you are triggering escape clause in your fiscal rules continuously, maybe at a certain moment you need to wonder whether maybe the fiscal rules are not fit for purpose and you need a proper review instead of every time triggering an escape rule. Secondly, and here I have to agree with Mr. Weber, the European approach is not strong enough in your approach. The 800 billion, only the 150 billion are European, the rest is national, without any clear indication there will be a European approach, and even with the 150, only by doing it through a joint procurement, I'm not sure this will really have a proper European approach. We don't need more tanks on the Greek-Turkish border. That brings me to the third point. Defence and security is much broader than arms and ammunition. This is about infrastructure. European infrastructure needs to improve also to transport all the materials throughout Europe. This is about rail infrastructure as well. This is about cybersecurity. But this is also about energy independence. And Mr. Procaccini, you said it already. Looking at how much money we as Europe are spending on fossil dependency, 400 billion euros each year, and we moved it from Russia to the United States. It's not helping anything. So the green transition is in the same agenda as the security agenda and should not be treated separately. And that's why we are concerned that investments in green and social transition are being at the cost of investments in security. And therefore we need to increase both, and we need to increase spending on both. That brings me to the last point. The situation in Ukraine is very dire and very sincere. And we cannot act, and we cannot lack on action and have complacency. The next Council needs to act faster. We need to stand by Ukraine. We need peace in Europe. We need peace in Ukraine. We need peace on our own terms. Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank. Für die Fraktion Die Linke spricht.
Well, thank you very much. Now our colleague from the left, Mr. Shirdevan. Thank you.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you, President. Donald Trump is willing to cast Ukraine to the lions in Russia, destroying international law, the international order. It is no longer about the strength of law, but the law of the strong. And so it is even more clear, Mrs. von der Leyen, that you are paying for the fact that you scandalously ignored diplomacy and only focused on a military solution to the war in Ukraine. No single diplomatic initiative was supported by the Commission, Turkey's efforts, Brazil's, China's, Israel's, the African countries, not even the Pope's efforts. This is a huge political failure on the part of European politicians. In your speech and in Mr. Costa's speech, we heard nothing about the Commission or Council taking up diplomatic initiatives that would be in the interests of Ukraine. The transatlantic partnership no longer exists. Trump is threatening the world and the EU with a destructive trade war. He is cozying up to dictators like Putin, and European politicians are being led by the nose through the arena of the White House. We still hear time and again only military solutions. All of a sudden, the debt brake no longer applies, and we have 800 billion euro. That money, I can assure you, will go towards US weapons. If we want to ensure strategic autonomy, we need responsible politics. We need to do away with the debt brake for once and for all. We need huge investment in the industry and digital infrastructure. We need energy security, social security, research and development. We need now to attract the brightest minds to Europe. The European digital market can no longer remain under the thumb of Elon Musk and his tech bros from the US. Honourable members, NATO is done with now. The EU needs its own security architecture, and the priority must be given to diplomacy over military solutions. That does not mean that we should not provide for requisite defence capabilities, but we cannot drive the profits of major arms manufacturers and large-scale investors. No one should be turning a profit when it comes to war. We need to nationalise the European armaments industry, and we need to strengthen international organisations such as the EU, defend international law. We didn't hear anything from you, Mrs. von der Leyen, or you, Mr. Costa, on self-determination, sovereignty. That's important for Ukraine. And what about criticism of Russia, but also Turkey and Israel? International law applies to friends, not just our enemies. If we want credibility, we cannot apply double standards. Strategic autonomy also means a better relationship with China. Mrs. von der Leyen, the EU Commission must put an end to its childlike approach to strategic planning. Thank you.
Für die ESEN-Fraktion spricht jetzt die Kollegin